Please welcome to the stage CJ's Director of Influencer Partnerships, Gabrielle Pajer.
Hi, everyone. How you doing? Good. Thanks for coming. Like they said, my name is Gabrielle Pajer. I'm the Director of Influencer Marketing here at CJ. I run a team of influencer experts that are focused on combining deep data analysis with storytelling. And the beauty of our team is that we get to work with both brands and creators to find common goals. So before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit story about me. This first picture is me in the 4th grade. So Mr. Sabati had this commercial project, and I'm not young, so VHS, if anyone knows what that still is, was the way to go. And so he said, pick a product, tell the story, present it. So we went to class, and I picked the Squeeze It, of course, because it's the 90s, and that's cool. And basically, I said, this is a fun drink for kids. And it was amazing. I had a great time creating a persuasive story, being able to engage my audience and get them to understand why this product is important. And I loved it so much that I even went back. When I was in high school, I went back and I was like, can I watch these commercials again? It just really, really inspired me with how we can persuade people with our stories. Secondly, as my education progressed, I learned that there was a social science behind how people are influenced. And the fact that you can influence people by your own actions was mind-blowing to me. In fact, Brian Solis coined a term that said, social media is about sociology and psychology, not technology. What that means is that social media is really about the relationships we build, not necessarily about the tools that we have. Not that the tools aren't important, but understanding what your influencers are and how they resonate with their audience is more important than the tools that we use to make it happen. And then finally, why we're here today, understanding how we can get persuasive messaging, storytelling, and inspiring people by our actions to match with our data so that we can go further into understanding why influencers matter, why our social media strategies matter, and why it's important to put it in your affiliate ecosystem. So enough about me. I'm going to introduce my panelists for today, Alex and Jocelyn. Please count them up. Hi, ladies.
Hey. Hi.
So before we get started, I would love for you guys to take a moment to introduce yourselves. So Alex, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell everyone where you're from?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Chojnacka. I'm the head of business development at Magic Links, and I've been in the influencer space for almost over 10 years now, helping brands find the right influencers to tell their stories.
My name is Jocelyn Goodroad. I am one of the founding members and EVP of Find Your Influence. We started our company back in 2013, so we've been finding solutions for brands and agencies to leverage influencers for all type of KPIs and reaching all type of audience across platforms. And we've been partnered with CJ for since early 2019 now. So,
amazing. Well, we've all been in influencer marketing for a long time now. Mm-hmm. And over the years, I think data has definitely taken over the space in understanding how influencer marketing works. So I really want to understand how brands should go about understanding whether their influencer efforts are successful.
Yeah, I can kick it off. So one of the biggest things is knowing what your goals are to start. And we get a lot of brands that come to us and say, well, our goals are everything. We want brand awareness, we want traffic, we want sales. And that's all great, and there are some unicorns that can do that. But for the most part, you want to focus and hone in on one primary goal. And then once you know that, then we have benchmarks. I think benchmarks are really important. And can be used to indicate whether or not you're running a successful program or not. And benchmarks, there's so many benchmarks. So you have benchmarks per platform. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they have their own benchmarks. But then at Magic Links, we have 5,000 videos that are published every single month. So we have our own benchmarks based on our data. You want to separate it out by category and vertical. And then you want to compare against yourself too. So if you're running a campaign and you typically see a 10% engagement rate, and all of a sudden you're seeing a 5% engagement rate, that might be great because it might be above the overall benchmark, but it's not what you've been noticing in your program. So you want to take into consideration all of these aspects, but benchmarking is definitely key to understanding if your program is successful or not.
Yeah. To add to that, we have the benefit of having run 12,000 campaigns. So when we're making recommendations for a brand, just like Alex mentioned, we always, everybody comes to us and says they have up to 3 goals almost always. So we always try to kind of narrow that down to one primary goal, and then we can design the campaign completely around that goal and then look to the other goals as secondary goals. But we do have the advantage of looking at all the past 12,000 campaigns that we've run. So when you come to us and you are looking for certain benchmarks for your campaign, we have campaigns of similar verticals and similar target audiences, and we actually provide guarantees that work as our benchmark, so it's very clear to you what you can expect at a minimum for a benchmark perspective, and then it's our job of our team to go above and beyond those metrics as well.
Amazing. And do you think that KPIs vary per creator?
Yeah, definitely. So, and Alex can even speak to this probably additionally, but when we're looking at different campaign metrics, if we're looking from an organic perspective, of course, if the engagement is the primary goal, we're looking for influencers who are more engaged with their audience, who follow back on comments, like their comments, truly have like a relationship with their followers. Tends to increase the organic play. If you're looking for more of a reach or impression metric, then you can go with a larger influencer, which may end up having a smaller engagement rate, but you're getting those eyeballs out there. And then there's also, individual influencers who do drive sales really well too. Those I think are harder to find from an organic content perspective, but it certainly can be achieved. And then also there's the goal of some people just want mass amount of content creation. So if that is your primary goal and you're going to use that content through a paid media strategy, that's also something that you can definitely look at and pre-negotiate those assets with the influencer so that you can continue to use those for 6 months or a year or what have you, and that adds to the total value of your campaign every time too.
Yeah, I like to think of it in that way too, and I like to think of it as a pyramid. So if you picture the pyramid, at the very top, you have the top tier influencers. These are influencers that have 1 million plus followers, and you're tapping into those big names and their big reach and their big audiences, mostly for brand awareness. At this level, at this top tier, it's really difficult to have a sales KPI. Like I said, there are some unicorns, but they're typically very expensive. So when you're focusing on brand awareness, launching a new product, driving just impressions, views, and eyeballs, the top tier, that's where we would point you to. The mid tier, right below that, are influencers that have around anywhere from 300,000 followers to 750,000 followers. They have more engagement with their audiences, and this is where they're able to drive more sales. And so the KPIs in that mid-tier can still be, yes, impressions and engagement, but this is where you can hone in on those sales. And then right below that, the micro and the nano tier, this is a really great tier for engaging with really niche communities, building brand loyalty, driving consideration. You can also, think about sales in this tier, but from my experience and what you had mentioned too, that mid-tier is really where you would find the sales KPI versus the micro and the nano and the top tier. But all tiers are really important to a holistic strategy.
Yeah, and I will add to that too is, when you're looking at, testing different tiers, so you want to test and learn what tiers work best for you, what categories of influencers work for you, which audience, which types of personalities of influencers work for your brand and align with your brand guidelines and everything. But when you're looking at those smaller creators, they can create some amazing content right up to par with those larger creators, and they're exponentially inexpensive to the larger creators. So the higher tier you go, you're exponentially paying more. So depending on what your goals are, you need to determine if it's worth going with a larger influencer, or can I use multiple smaller influencers, gain even more content to play with, to test and learn from. And then as you kind of get to understand what type of influencers work for you, from a smaller influencer perspective, because you've kind of saved your budget by testing that piece, then you can explore kind of higher tiered and see how those perform for you as well.
Amazing. So my team does an evergreen strategy, and customer journey is really, really important to us, because what we learn is over time, the influencer can go from discovery to conversion.
Yep.
So knowing that, how do we get more long-term promotion of a brand? And what are your recommendations there?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of tied to what we were just talking about. A holistic approach is really great, tapping into all tiers, but knowing that it's an always on and it's not a one and done game. There are a number of different considerations for a brand here. One, building brand ambassadors. That's where that micro and nano tier can be really great, because if you can imagine, these are influencers that have done a really great job so far building a community, and they have proved that they can market themselves and build an audience, because they at least have 50,000 to 5,000 to 50,000 followers, and that takes some effort and that takes some savviness. And if you get in with these influencers early on, you lock them into great rates, because influencer rates are just skyrocketing right now. They're more than tripling. So that tier is really great to focus in on, because you get to lock them in for a longer term engagement and grow with them. So growing with that micro and and nano tier. And then considering that their audiences will have to see them promote a product a few times before they take action. Depending on the category, obviously some categories are easier than others. Like if there's a dress, they might react right away. But if it's a product that they need to try, if it's beauty, they might need to see it a few times. So that always-on approach is really important. The other long-term promotion aspect to consider is platforms as well. And at Magic Links, YouTube is definitely our bread and butter, and YouTube is a platform that is long-form content versus short-form content, and does have really incredible search functionality. So if you focus on evergreen content, especially on YouTube, something like skincare habits, how to get glowy skin, or how to do a smoky eye, that's just one example, but there are lots of evergreen topics. Those are searchable on YouTube for a really long time, and we see clicks happening on those YouTube videos 2 years down the line, which is it's a long time. So just focusing on the fact that influencers aren't a one and done thing, and really keeping platforms in mind is really important to making sure you have long-term coverage and are growing with the influencers, versus considering them as just like something to tap into as a one and done.
Yeah, great. To add to that, when you're working with influencers again and again for multiple campaigns, and you build that brand ambassadorship, that tells their audience that this is truly an authentic partnership. And we're always encouraging our influencers to only accept partnerships that you truly resonate with. Ideally for you, if not, then that the majority of your audience is really going to resonate with that. So that's really important. Also, having a long-term strategy is just like any other marketing strategy. You have to continually test and learn. There's new, different types of content coming out on every single platform. There's different audiences to be tested. There's different categories of influencers to be tested. There's a lot of influencers that seem obvious for what your product, brand, or service it is, but definitely consult with people like us because we've seen specific categories you may not have thought of that will perform for your products or brands. And we can test and learn and then optimize and move forward. Typically, how we approach our strategy is we really do encourage the long-term approach so that we have an agreement to kind of test and learn the first campaign. We get a ton of learnings from that first campaign that puts some optimization techniques into the next campaign. We're just continually optimizing to always achieve our guarantees because we provide guarantees for all of our benchmark campaigns, but even further exceed that in whatever your KPIs may be, whether it's sales or engagements or reach, but most of this audience is going to be conversions and sales. So if that's the case, you continually need to test and learn. You'll end up with some influencers that are just gangbusters, like they'll be with you for life. They love your brand and you love their content. And when the followers see them continuously partnering with you guys, that is the authenticity key that really drives sales. So in addition to strategy and testing and learning, finding those authentic influencers who create amazing content that you can just tell they truly love that brand or product or service, that's what's going to convert in the end.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that. I totally agree on the authenticity piece. Two thoughts just came to mind as well. One, it's about building relationships with the influencers over time too, and just making sure, an influencer, when they're getting consistent campaigns from a brand, they do typically tend to go above and beyond. And so you're getting way more out of them than you're actually paying for as well.
Definitely.
And then the other piece, because of everyone obviously in this room, it's an affiliate conference, is thinking about, well, how does that affect my affiliate strategy? We have a retailer that we work with that has partnered with us on an always-on basis, and we took a look at their performance. We took out the campaign influencers and saw a 300% lift in the network overall, because influencers influence one another. If they're seeing, oh wow, there's a lot of content happening on behalf of brand X, for example, maybe I'll start including them in my content because I have an affinity for them as well. And it seems like they're working with creators I want to get on their radar. And because we're, this conversation's about data too, the influencers are pretty savvy. They think about, okay, well, I want to get on their radar, so I'm going to start sending them traffic and sales. And then the team can see that I'm a performer and they can cast me in campaigns. So there is this halo effect, which is really, really nice from an always-on approach as well.
And also, we see the people that invest in an evergreen strategy, their campaign performance just improves more and more over time. They have more content to feed their social account. Their target audiences see them more, inclined to be part of the social environment, and they start trusting those influencers more and more too, because they have more testimonials from more influencers. And also we negotiate the rights to that content for every campaign, so when we hand over those raw assets to you, you can continue to promote that influencer content for even after our campaign wraps, to continue to take advantage of that authenticity, promote it from their handle, promote it from your brand handle, and test and learn that way as well.
Yeah, the momentum is good.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about trust and authenticity, because I think it's really important. And we're constantly telling people that influencers are a really great way to build that trust. And over time, what I'm seeing is that consumers are also getting savvy, and they're starting to understand what the influencer truly stands for. Not always, but blending that authentic message is really, really important. So what do we do to ensure that consumers will continue to trust the influencer and look to them for recommendations?
One thing I will say is to identify everybody can say they authentically love a product, brand, or service, but it's great to find those people that are already talking about it, so that you can trust in them, and they've already promoted that with their followers, so there's total trust there. We have the ability to find, different products that every influencer has talked about, so we know who is already authentically promoting products or services. And also, we can survey our database of influencers and find people and make it a blind survey and say, do you use product X, Y, or Z, including your product and your competitors? Why do you love this product? Really good in understanding for that person being, coming from that authentic perspective. And also, as far as ensuring to trust them, we ensure that when we work with our brands, we fully bake out our contract with the influencers, the campaign brief. It's a collaboration between the brand for each campaign. Our team does the majority of it, but then we send it back to the brand to add any do's, don'ts, brand guidelines. A huge piece of advice is if you can make everything in that contract/campaign brief that you could possibly think of that could come up that might be something that you don't want in a piece of content, because when that contract goes out, yes, we negotiate 2 rounds of edits for every piece of content, but that's only if we can point back to that campaign brief that they didn't follow something correctly, and so they're not following contract to reshoot that content. So anything that you can do to really robustly fill out those campaign briefs is super helpful to give those influencers direction. And then also, if there's something in that campaign brief that the influencer feels will make it less authentic, they can come back and share that and then get agreement between you before they move forward with the content.
Yeah, those campaign briefs are really critical. We do a deep dive into that because it's a balance. What I would say is give the creator all the control with those barriers.
Yeah.
So knowing that, for example, if you're doing a campaign, you have a list of do's and don'ts, like you said. Don't mention us with any of these types of brands. Don't mention a competitor. We want you to mention our fast and reliable service, but do it in a way where you feel like it's authentic to you. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts, but at the same time, you give the creator full control, because that's where the magic happens. Creators are storytellers, the best storytellers, right? And this is why we're working with them, is because they know their audiences so well. They've clearly done a good job in growing their audience to where they are today, to a point where you want to work with them. So trust them, and trust them with those guidelines. And it is a bit of art and science. We do use a lot of data to cast a campaign, and that data is super important because we're, especially if you're giving us a KPI of sales, we're going to see, okay, well, which creators convert for this price point, this category. But there's also art in terms of, well, we know the creators that would like or already work with this product, or already like this product, or resonate with this product, or have an affinity for similar products. And it's about getting creative in that way too. We had a brand that's a health and wellness brand come to us, and getting creative with the casting layered on top of the data is where we saw a lot of success, and tapping into new verticals or new types of creators that they weren't thinking of, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion. That was super important. So making sure that your casting is on point, and it includes both the science and the art as well. And we do get a lot of creators that turn things down, which is more power to them, because you don't want that message to get lost and seem inauthentic. And in the do's and don'ts also, especially if a creator, because I agree with you, Jocelyn, like it's great to find creators that already use your product, but then there's always going to be times where you're like, I want to tap into new audiences, and if this creator is not using my product, I want to educate them on why they should. Give them enough time to try it. Of course, again, it depends on the category, right? If it's fashion, it doesn't take long. You try on a dress, it looks good, great. But if it's a beauty product, or if it's like a supplement, give them a chance to try it. The worst thing is, like, I cringe when I see videos like, I just got this product, and I've been using it for one day, And I love it so much. And it's just like, no, please don't ever say that. Give them time to use it and have a genuine reaction to it. So that adds a little bit more into the timeline of getting a campaign live.
The other thing I wanted to add is, because I've gotten a lot of questions from my meetings at this conference, is, what if we have to do legal review? What if we, within our company, finance brands and insurance brands, they often have like specific messaging that they have to use. We can do that too, and influencers do understand that that category requires it. So the most important thing, again, is really, again, building that robust information into the brief, and then having built in the timeline for the review process so that you know that you have enough time for your time to review, your legal time to review, and any other parties that have weigh-in all at once, and then bring all that feedback all at once to whoever you're working with to execute your campaign, because we're working with human beings here too, and if they get, piecemeal feedback, it's really difficult for them to be able to reshoot that content. So definitely be transparent with who you're working with, how much time you need for that review, how much time you need to review all the influencer options, and then just come in very prepared with more information for the influencers than you might think, and it'll save a lot of trouble on the back end. If you come into a situation where, oh my gosh, we forgot to say you can't use this word when you're referring to our brand, and then you have to reshoot the whole content. So just try as much to get ahead of that as possible. And we found that people that are new to influencer marketing, they, the first campaign brief, once we actually execute that, we find as the content comes back, we should have added a lot more to the campaign brief. So hopefully just, consult as much as you can. Sometimes that happens, and, everything can happen, and we'll always try to negotiate with the influencer to have that edit made anyway. But it does help build the relationship with the influencers when you have everything fully buttoned up, make their life easier to create the content, give them clear direction, and the content will come out a lot more, up to your standards. And also there's no confusion or frustration on their end, because, if they have to reshoot content and they have already shot some of the content you've approved, they have to get in the same outfit, they have to try to look the same, or they have to reshoot everything. So just keep that in mind. A reshoot is a pretty big deal for an influencer. So if you can get ahead of that, that's highly recommended.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about being realistic about the timeline too,
Yeah.
and being clear. There's times where an influencer may record something and it's winter, and then before you know it, we're not going live till summer, and they like you said, they have to change their outfit.
For all of our campaigns that we
Yeah.
shot right before COVID, we have to reshot with masks on and social distancing and all of that too. So
Yeah,
all of these things take into consideration for sure.
absolutely. Did I go the right way? Yeah. All right. So what I want to understand here is that, I think it's really important that the brand's message is seen. And one of the things that we're constantly talking about is the algorithms in social media and how they really can swallow up the influencer's message. And how can we avoid that? Because at the same time, we want this evergreen strategy. We want to leverage their audiences, but we're also up against these social media channels that are changing things, and it's really, not on the influencer's control. So how can we avoid this? Or how can we make it better?
You want to go or do you want me?
I can take it.
Okay,
I can
great.
start. I have so many thoughts here. I think one angle is to lean into the algorithm changes and guide the strategy based on what is working. So for example, knowing that Instagram was prioritizing Reels for a little bit, right? And they still are, incorporating that into the content strategy somehow. Right now we're at a moment on YouTube where YouTube is prioritizing YouTube Shorts. And YouTube is typically known for their long form content, but now they, all these platforms kind of bounce ideas off of one another, right, and kind of steal some things that are working, which is totally fine. And YouTube Shorts is being prioritized. So incorporating YouTube Shorts into our strategy ongoing and guiding our brands on how to incorporate that into that so that we can be sure that the content has a really great engagement rate and is being viewed and seen. On the influencer side, we do provide influencers tools as well, like link in bio tools. We have these, collection tools that help them, aggregate the links that they create. Building relationships with their audiences outside of the social platforms too, as a creator. So this is more from a creator standpoint, but as a brand, you want to think about how do you engage within these channels. So lots of influencers are thinking about how do I build an email list. We do have a partnership with Community that was like a texting service that some of our influencers have been using as well. So it's really about leaning into it and really focusing on what content can we put in that will make sure that that there's enough views and engagement, and then making sure that we're guiding the creators too on building relationships with their audiences, because that's favorable for everyone. And then there's paid. I have some things to say about paid, but I feel like you guys do a lot of that, so I'll take that and add to it.
Okay. So what we found, we started our company doing organic content campaigns 9 years ago, and those were great, and we can definitely do organic content campaigns, meaning, for those of you who understand, just having the influencer post organically on their social channels. That still has a sponsored or hashtag ad. It would still be sponsored content. But in addition, we do almost always recommend pairing that with a paid media strategy. Our packages that we do for most of our CJ clients incorporate typically a small group of micro-influencers that we can test and learn across your different target audiences, different categories. So lots of testing and learning going on at the same time, both from an organic perspective and who you're using and what type of content you're having them create, testing and learning reels versus in-feed versus video. It's completely different across brands what works for the most part. We can give recommendations on what's most likely going to work, and that's what we'll recommend for your first campaign. But our goal would be to test and learn along the way. But as far as visibility, because of the changes in the algorithms, especially for TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, where we primarily see the best success for our affiliate programs, we definitely add a paid media strategy component. And typically what we do to set up this, as far as if your goals are return on ad spend goals or a CPA type goal, we recommend setting up a campaign that allows us to have pixel access from your Facebook and Instagram account as well as your TikTok account. What that essentially does for us is it allows us to take the organic placement from the influencer's account. We pre-negotiate the rights to have admin access to their account, and then we can promote their content within, coming from them essentially, not the brand, so it looks more authentic, and we can make sure that everybody in their audience sees it, because not everybody, even in their audience, will see it. And then additionally, layer on your target audiences. And with the pixel access, that allows us to optimize those ads in real time to hit your conversion goals. And obviously when we're looking at those programs, we also embed CJ links in every piece of content. So we're embedding CJ links in the organic content for each influencer and also the paid media content for each influencer, so we can evaluate the performance on both ends. From our perspective, through the past few years of doing affiliate-based campaigns, we've seen the most success with leveraging those micro-influencers that we can negotiate really low rates for super high-quality content that we know will convert, and then adding that paid media strategy, optimizing towards conversions. We have those CJ links set up so we can look at the last click conversion data, and then the Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok gives us that view-based data and that first click data, because often we know that when influencers are influencing their followers, they're seeing an ad especially on Instagram, it's not clickable, so they just go direct to site. So we're lost all of the trackability for that person. So what I typically do, and our team does whenever we're doing an affiliate, goal campaign, we set up their initial program based on, our algorithmic recommendations of what we believe will perform best, set up a paid media plan, optimized towards conversions, are in touch regularly through there about what we're seeing as far as revenue we're driving on the Facebook Ads Manager, and then also compare it to the CJ data. And then we come together at the end of that campaign and each campaign thereafter and determine, okay, from your end, from the other visibility you guys have from your website, from IP addresses you've seen come in, Google Analytics, from the customer journey, from CJ, where do we think we lost those attributed conversions? Because often we'll see, let's just say, 1,000 conversions on Facebook data and 200 conversions on CJ data. So we lost 800 people in there. Where did they go and where were those conversions claimed? So we consult back and forth with each advertiser, and we come up with a custom attribution model for your influencer marketing program that you're comfortable with, that our team feels they can optimize to. So we might decide, okay, based on your data, let's take 20% of the view-based conversions, let's take 40% of the click-based conversions from first click, and let's take all of the last click conversions, and then you sort of have your attribution model, which again will continue to evolve over time until we may have it exactly right, and then we see changes, and then we gotta evolve a little bit more. So it's definitely something you have to customize, just the nature of influencers and not having those multiple clicks, and also knowing that all of you have so many other things that you're doing from search and retargeting and everything that could claim those very, very quickly. So the evergreen strategy works really well because you are continually testing and learning and evolving that attribution model.
Yeah, I think paid is really key in making sure you're taking content that is performing really well and not losing out on the potential of that content and putting, making sure that content has more visibility. And so we do that either pre-planning with clients in that they put paid spend initially into the campaign, and we're thinking about that, especially when we're thinking about how to create content, because you have to think about how content will look for paid and organic as well. But sometimes there are pieces of content that are just blowing it out of the water. Their engagement is so high, and we come to the client and say, this is really incredible in terms of what we're seeing. We should put paid boosting behind this so that you can get more, more visibility out of this great piece of content, especially, if it's evergreen. For example, we had some beauty videos on TikTok that were just beauty tutorials with products that are evergreen products, and this beauty brand will continue to put paid spend throughout the year behind those videos because they do so well. And that pixel sharing is really critical in optimizing for conversion. TikTok is something that everybody is talking about right now. We have a great relationship with TikTok, a preferred partnership where we get access to some of their beta tools for the paid component. And so specifically on TikTok, because the algorithms are so unpredictable in terms of the content, an influencer can have 1 million followers on TikTok, but some of their videos have 1,000 views and some of their videos have 100,000 views. Mm-hmm. And it's really all based on that algorithm. So the paid piece on TikTok is specifically very impactful, and leveraging some of those beta tools like collection ads, where the consumer gets to make purchases easy. It's an easier and smoother experience versus clicking through link in bio. I think it makes the paid spend definitely more impactful, and again, not only gives the content more visibility and guarantees that your brand is front and center, but it also helps drive sales.
Okay. Well, I wanted to give time for questions. I did have one more question. We have 1 minute left, but I think that it's really important that we talk about this real quick, is that, being the performance channel, we're always looking for return on ad spend. And influencers are really good at being a part of that journey, but they're not necessarily your end point when it comes to a last click model. Mm-hmm. So should brands be considering this as a KPI?
I think so because, that's ultimately what you guys are, doing out here. But I do think that other things need to be considered, just kind of what I said. Like, we really do have to consider, I think, some of the view data, the first click data, just again because of the nature of how people that take advice from influencers shop. But also, don't forget about the value of the content that you've just secured, that you get rights to that content. That's a huge additional value. Also, look at all the eyeballs you reached, look at all the engagements you had. I mean, our end campaign recap report goes through sentiment, organic learnings, paid learnings, additional KPIs we've overachieved, what conversions you've had, what revenue driven. So we, while you definitely want to have one primary goal, look at the value of everything else that you've achieved, including those assets that you can pass along to your paid media team who can continue to use that and drive additional conversions from there too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously looking at one-to-one ROAS is there, and there are influencers that can do that, but there's so much more to influencers than that. They're not ads, they are people. And you get so much value by working with them. You get brand alignment, brand affinity, brand awareness, the content usage rights, the views, all of that comes along with working with an influencer. They are storytellers, they're photographers, they're marketers. It's really something that needs to be looked at holistically. And even the one-to-one ROAS, going back to that always-on approach, should be looked at on a longer-term basis too, versus a one-and-done campaign.
Amazing. All right, well, we're at time. So unfortunately, I don't think we have time for questions. Do we, Sandrine?
We did. Unfortunately, you guys had so much to share and so
Sorry.
many insights. I mean, I hope that people can grab you maybe in the quarters at some other time in the conference. But thank you for the session, and let's give them a big round of applause.